if you want to go talk with a coach, and you are a guy from Lisbon, the center of Lisbon, and you want to go talk with a coach from the north of Portugal, you should not go in a nice shirt, in a nice thing, and very fancy, and coming from an IT company. You need to arrive there. First of all, you need to explain to the other guy that you know what you're talking about. So if you are talking about the system, probably it's good for you to speak about.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm here with Jose, all the way from actually quite cold Lisbon these days. I guess that's a rare side. How's everything going? Nonetheless, with a little bit of bad weather down south.
Yeah, everything's great except for exactly the weather. It's not. We're not used to this kind of weather in Lisbon: storms, cold, rain, and everything. You know.
Exactly. No, I know the feeling. I mean, like it's always quite. I wouldn't say always super hot, but it's quite nice weather in Lisbon. So
usually it's always clear weather, at least.
Yeah, no, that's good. But a bit windy though, you know, with the airport and all this stuff. But you get used to it quite fast. Nonetheless, we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about obviously your background and experience, and a little bit about your journey, of course, in the sport industry. And first of all, you know, why don't you share a little bit about, you know, how your journey in the sport industry began? Take a little bit through how it all started for you.
Okay, so I was always a passionate football fan, always a football player. I played in several clubs when I was a kid: Sporting Lisbon, Belenenses, Estoril. Then I went to Belgium to study. I decided not to go for sports studies. I decided to go for more general studies, management and international business.
Sure.
When I decided my master's in international business, I was already thinking about football, because football is probably one of the biggest international businesses in the world. And once I finished my master's, I arrived in Lisbon, and I actually didn't know how to start. Where to start. I didn't want to start a 9-to-5 job directly. I was okay financially, so I decided to take a year off. This was in 2015, but it was never a year off. It was a year where I would start thinking about what I wanted, how I wanted things to go. And I happily I knew some people from Sporting Lisbon. One of them was Aurelio Pereira, the mythical scouting director from Sporting that found Cristiano, Figo, Nani, and all of these guys. And so this Aurelio invited me to go to the academy and explain me how the process went and what I should do first. And he told me that the first thing I should do was to know how to look a player, how to understand the kid, how to see a young 10-year-old kid, and how to observe him. And so that's how I started it.
Right.
I started in Sporting's youth scout, as a Sporting youth scout. It was just on weekends, but it got me for a whole 2 years. It got me to understand how the football observation and scouting processes go, how a club like Sporting operates internally. I was a bit surprised from all the not lack of professionalism, of course, but I thought things would be much more advanced in a club like Sporting. And I remember at the time they did a conference for all the scouts, and they talked about FootballISM at the time, because it was being implemented and it was being developed for Sporting. And I thought, like, yeah, this thing is great, you know. And 3 years after, I then in 2016, I knew that I was going to be a father. So I could not just be working on weekends and doing much things during the day. So I went to the advertisement and media world for 2 years. And meanwhile, I was always trying to look for jobs in the football industry, more related. I wanted to do like coaching courses, but never actually. I quickly understood that the coaching world, the day-to-day of a football club I was not ready for it yet. So from my background, my studies, I thought that probably my direction should be more related to startups, new products, tech products, where I could be more of a business developer. And that's exactly what I found in FootballISM in 2018, sorry. And from that moment, I am in FootballISM, and my work in football has been growing ever since.
That's great. I mean, like it's a cool story, and I mean, like also I appreciate you kind of just sharing a little bit about kind of like the journey of just yeah, like the struggles as well of getting into sport, right? Don't knowing where you're starting, and I think like again, this is a lot of the reason why we have these
Exactly.
conversations. And
People try to go to agencies. I wanted to go to an agency, and like nowadays, I think like, yeah, going to an agency would be the biggest mistake I would have done, you know?
right, no, but it's also about kind of just understanding right the process of how hard it is, right? And a lot of people struggle to understand okay how to begin, where to begin, but there's always multiple angles to enter, right? And also as you said
Exactly.
like oh I'm like I started as scouting, but then you realize okay like a more natural approach for me is more business, startup, tech, this kind of way, even being involved in sports and football, right? So people sometimes get stuck to that, like, oh, I have to work for Sporting Lisbon or Benfica, or like I have to
Or
work
for a
for a
club
club,
directly, exactly.
but it doesn't work that way. You can be involved with so many things, and maybe I guess for you too, it's like, now you can work with many clubs because of Football ISM. So that's also a beautiful thing
I
to.
know much more now about the football club because of my work than maybe if I was working in a scouting department for a club.
Right. No,
Exactly.
exactly. And so it's always good to kind of, have this in the back of their mind for you that are listening, of course. And obviously, let's talk a little bit about Football ISM. Obviously, you've been part of that since 2018, as you mentioned. But first of all, like, what is it, and what is the kind of the key purpose behind it?
Okay, so FootballISM was it was basically it all started in 2011-12
Okay.
when the director of Sporting Lisbon basically he's a visionary. He's Pedro Milomes. He's the guy that built the academy in Sporting. He's the guy that in 2013 went on to build the great Benfica academy that now gives all the players that they are giving, like Gonçalo Ramos that just scored 3 goals against Switzerland.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically this guy looked at and he had a dream that he saw that it was zero productivity on all departments working separately. So the coaches are using one system, the scouts another one is using Excel, the other one PowerPoint, the other one
Right.
Word. No one communicates. They all communicate on phone calls, and nothing is registered because of all the rotation on mostly on the technical areas and on the scouting areas.
Right.
Lots of work is lost because, on the contrary to general businesses in football, people and general stakeholders, coaches, scouts, and everything, they feel they are entitled to their own work. So they just leave the club, and they leave the club with the work they have been doing for the last 2-3 years.
Keep all their
I give you
secrets.
Exactly. I give you an example. One of the coaches that was in Guimarães, first division club in Portugal,
Yeah.
for 2 years used the resources of Guimarães to make a thorough analysis of all the referees in first and second league in Portugal.
Yeah.
Like every week, he was doing analysis. After 2 years, he left the club. He went to Benfica, and he took all the information with him. And so basically for 2 years, you had like 5 or 6 or 7 people that were in Guimarães that still are in Guimarães that lost all the work they have been doing for the last 2 years, and Benfica actually gained with it. And so basically this guy launched a contest, Pedro Milomes, getting back to the story, in 2010, launched a contest saying, guys, I need a tech company that will give me a system where everyone can work so that I can have all the information in the same place. I can manage all the information. I can start crossing the data because big data is the future. And now, of course, this was back in 2010. So he's already a visionary.
Yeah, it's early talking about that for sure. So
exactly, very early. Yeah, we won the contest for 5-6 years. We developed the system with them. Of course, Sporting was a bit of a chaos in terms of presidents and results and presidents back and forth, and so the project stopped and
Right.
went back many times.
Yeah.
In 2017, sorry, basically Sporting didn't want to pay the last third part, like typical football club, and they said like, okay, you can sell it to clubs. And for us, it was, yeah, okay, it's a good bargain. At the time, we are a tech company, a multinational tech company specialized in services. So we didn't have any experience in the football world. We didn't know how it worked. We were at the beginning, we were selling the FootballISM as a one-shot fee, like a huge price. No one is going, because of the rotation, no one is going to take responsibility for it.
Right.
We needed to understand the business model, right? And that's also why I came in 2018, so that I could be the business manager slash sales manager slash the guy that is going to run a little bit the business itself and strategies, communication, and everything. The main purpose, to answer the question of FootballISM, is basically centralization of information, better productivity, better efficiency, and in one sentence, the right information at the right time to the right person. So with all these things, the club gets much more productive. And most of all, this is from the beginning. If you think a little bit on the medium to long term, you are getting data from the last 5-10 years, and imagine what you can do with that. That's from all the different departments, what you can do in terms of machine learning, predictive models. We are still not there yet, of course, because we worked for the last 4 years, but I really do believe that without this, you cannot, without having all the information in the same place, you cannot do that. So we are trying to get in advance so that in a few years we can be a role model in what is injury prevention, taking care of the kids in the right way, and getting the right path for all these things.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, and thanks for the in-depth story, on how it all started. I mean, like it's fascinating how these projects comes to life, right? And also a little bit about like just in a sense the outcome, right? Of like you have like this almost like exclusivity agreement, and then suddenly you're out here selling
selling it to everyone.
I mean, like at the end of the day, that's probably a better model anyways, right? It's more people, more clubs, more organization can benefit the system.
Of course.
So at the end of the day, it's going to benefit the football industry, and I think that's what we all want. So talk a little about obviously your role. You're the head of business development now, as you were kind of like going into at the end there. But talk a little about like some of your key responsibilities and a little bit about the priorities these days that you have.
Okay, so basically, to explain you the structure a little bit, FootballISM, once I got in, we had our CEO that was actually the CEO of the tech company. So what we are talking about is a guy, Felipe Esteves. He was the guy that won the contest. He went there to do everything, but at the same time, he was the CEO of a company of, at the time we were 600 people. So he didn't have time to do to go after clients, to make follow-up meetings, to manage media, to do all these kinds of stuff. So we needed someone to help, and we had a product manager that was actually helping him, and it is Carlos Valentin, that is basically the guy behind everything, behind all the system, all the requisites. He went to Sporting Lisbon for 3 or 4 years, and we had a lead developer. This was the team. So the CEO, that was actually the CEO. The thing is, with Sporting Lisbon, of course, we lost some money. The company lost some money. And our mother company, the Mungi Group, is a company specialized in services. So they are used to making fast money. It was actually the first product of the company. And the culture of products didn't really exist. So the hiring was actually difficult. And once I talked with Philippe, he told me, I can call you in 2 weeks, or I can call you in 3 months. So he actually managed to convince directly the French guy to meet me. And it was basically the last shot. If I didn't get in at that time, probably FootballISM would have been finished at the time, because it didn't have any client for a whole year, lots of investment. In my opinion, it was not lots of investment, but for the idea of not winning fast money like the company is used to, it was a bit different, different kind of culture. So at the beginning, I was really hired a bit more because of my language skills and to be salesman. So my idea was selling, 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 selling. Of course, if we are talking about a structure of 3, 4, 5 people, we had help from the company to develop. Okay, so I'm talking about fully exclusive people, but of course we had developers to run out the apps, to run out some urgencies and everything. But at the beginning, I was really only a sales manager. From the moment, I will tell you, the marketing department, for example, it's a shared department for all the companies in the group in Portugal. So we are talking about 7 companies in the group that are helped by a 10 people marketing department. Right. So it's not a full marketing department. At the beginning, of course, they were doing the marketing for ISM. They really liked it because instead of doing general marketing like all the other companies that are the same, this is a product, this is a bit different. But I had my ideas. I really didn't. I found out lots of things that, and don't forget, I came from 2 years in the advertisement and media world. So I had some experience and I had some knowledge about these kinds of things. It was not easy to get the management of it because at the beginning I was really a business manager working to sell. But throughout time, I got also the responsibility of the marketing strategies and marketing. I was heading. Now I'm basically I manage the marketing side, understanding what are the strategies, what are my goals, and finally, once the product is growing, once you start closing clients, once you start creating other products, you need to start thinking and visualizing the future. And one of my key responsibilities that I really think nowadays is the strategy of the whole. It's not only FootballISM now, it will become ISM Sports next year with 3 products. I want to create more products. I want to really create a sports tech company. And my goal basically now is to really prepare a pitch deck, investment deck, to go to the French guys up top and sell them the idea of the future of the system. Because if you compare our FootballISM with my competitors, all of them already got like 2, 3, 4 million investment funds, VCs, or 50 million like Kitman Labs. They all got into the rounds of investment that I cannot. But my idea is, okay, guys, do you want to invest? If you don't, at least let me try to go pick some investment, because I really do believe that the future of the company might be bright.
Right. No, but that makes a lot of sense. And as you were saying, like you also need to, stay on top of your competitors, right? And if you're gonna grow in this market, I mean, like if everyone is kind of stepping ahead, you need to follow that. Exactly. or be ahead, if you can as well. So I understand it's a little bit of a different model in that sense, just because of how obviously everything is structured. But
exactly.
But it's very
at the same time, I have my salary at the end of the month. I'm sure I'm going to have it. So I'm talking about like the differences between startups and big companies, So in this way, at least
you don't have to live on a month-to-month basis,
Exactly. That's all. Of course, always the good part of we have great offices. We have everything is great. But yeah, for 2, 3, 4 years at the beginning, I had to be also. I had to be client manager because my colleague Carlos could not manage everything. So we got too many clients for the people we had, and so for the until this year where we hired a customer success manager, I was basically half of my time I was dealing with clients with their day-to-day jobs. I had to help Carlos making sure, and I was always telling my superiors that, guys, it doesn't make sense to get more clients if we cannot manage the ones we have. So let's focus on the ones we have first, making sure they are okay, they are good, they are working on the system, and then we'll go out for some new clients. And that's what happened this year also with the hirings and the new clients we have.
Makes a lot of sense, and it's a fascinating journey, right? The balance between getting enough clients and also making sure you take care of them at the end of the day.
And fighting for investment and telling them, guys, 10,000 euros for a commercial deal with Sevilla is worth. It's worth. Again, it's culturally wise. It's a different mentality because of the. I don't blame. It's not that I blame. And what I'm telling now, with you here, I also tell them directly. I'm not here doing. My opinion is clear, and everyone knows it. It's a cultural view of the company itself that I try to change every day, and with different stuff. And of course, clients help, and new projects help with this.
Step by step, it's gonna happen. Just gotta be patient, work hard, show the results. It's all gonna pay out.
Exactly.
So I wanted to obviously talk a little about your work as, obviously I think you kind of covered it quite well with your work as a scout for Sporting Lisbon. But I wanted to talk a bit about that time, and a little bit about like some lessons you learned from this job that you had over the two years that you brought with you to FootballISM.
Yeah, some interesting things I think here. First of all, once you get in as a scout, you need to understand, talking about the scouting position, you need to understand that you don't know anything. So that you really like football. Of course, you read stuff, but you really don't. I was watching a player. I remember perfectly. I was with my coordinator. Watching a 12-year-old player in Estoril, and a central defender, and I was like, "Yeah, this guy is great, man." And like, he just did 3 minutes on the phone, and he just checked. Yeah, but this guy first is from January, so the relative age concept. Okay, so this was the first thing. So he's from January. Probably is playing with kids from December. So 1 year when you are 11, 12, it's big. And this guy comes from Benfica. And so he comes from Benfica and he's now in Estoril. So he downgraded. So probably, it's not obvious, he might have other reasons, but probably it was not good enough for Benfica. So of course he's good for Estoril in this case, but he's from January and he did prove in Benfica. So you cannot say directly that he's very good. Of course, if you see him 5, 6, 7, 8 times, maybe Benfica was not right, but you cannot say it automatically like, yeah, okay, great, this guy. So this was only the first story that got me to understand, okay, I need to see the parents. I need to understand and hear the parents. What are they talking about? I need to understand if the mother and the father are like, this guy is going to be my next Cristiano Ronaldo, because the parents are probably the biggest killers of football players in the world. They are the worst species in the football world, in my opinion. So I saw it was some disgusting things, like a father, a kid was doing a corner, making corner, he failed the corner, and the father was screaming at him. I was like, how is this possible? Like, and parents fighting each other, like all these kinds of things help me understand, okay, I really don't know much of football. At another point, taking what I learned from the scout, not only the scouting position, but what I learned in that moment, it was like, when talking with friends and about what I read and everything, I really thought I really knew lots of stuff. But study. I did a course in a postgrad of technical director in a European university, and there I understood the concept of the different game phases. I understand what are the different positions in a club. With FootballISM also, I really understood the different departments, exactly how they relate to each other. And so one thing that is important, in my opinion, and I always tell people that ask me for advice, what should I do and how should I do it? It's to be always up to date on and to know how to speak with everyone. Because if you are not a former player, like I'm not a former player, even though of course everyone is a former player, but I'm not like a first division guy.
We all been superstars.
We are being superstars, exactly. But if I'm not one of those guys that has the star up top saying, okay, this guy knows about football, you need to really know. So even for FootballISM, lots of, I think that I told the new guy coming in January is like, if you want to go talk with the coach, and you are a guy from Lisbon, the center of Lisbon, and you want to go talk with a coach from the north of Portugal, you should not go in a nice shirt, in a nice thing, and very fancy, and coming from an IT company. You need to arrive there. First of all, you need to explain to the other guy that you know what you're talking about. So if you are talking about the system, probably it's good for you to speak about, imagine when you're talking about the training sessions, it's good for you to explain, and not explain him, but to show him that you know some concepts of football that is not thinking that you know. So to understand, imagine when you're talking about offensive transitions, when you and to use some of the vocabulary these guys will see you, even though you are from an IT company, saying, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so that's one of the most, and for that, you're not gonna know that looking at football on the TV. You're going to know that reading, understanding all the different models of the game, understanding and always every day 10, 20 minutes understanding the what is happening in football world. So that once you reach into a meeting, hey, did you see the game yesterday? Whoa, your U17s won an incredible thing last week. So that culture is very important in my opinion. That's what scouting thing brought me to FootballISM as well.
100% makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, it comes down to bringing relevant examples, right? That the potential customer or client can relate to. And I mean, like that's probably the most important thing. And I think probably more important when you come from, how can I say, more of a tech company, right? In a sense, because people are maybe even more skeptic at this point of kind of like, oh, do you actually know the industry, right?
And, exactly. You're coming from an IT company selling me a software. What do you know about football?
Right. So you need to convince them, right? At the end of the day, it's part of the process, right? And once you have that credibility, I mean, like then things can be a lot
and
easier.
even the dress code is important. It's something that I really fought in my company, because at the beginning they were telling me you need to wear a suit. And I was like, do you really want me to wear a suit to go talk with a sports director from a second division club in Portugal?
Yeah, they're not going to use a suit.
Is going to look at a 27-year-old guy with a suit, with a briefcase, coming from an IT company and coming from Lisbon. Because, of course, also in Portugal, 85% of football is up north. And there is a rivalry between the north and the capital. And so all these things together, I was like, how do you want me to sell something if I'm going like this? So everything was a step over to understand how you should behave yourself in the football world.
100%. No, it's a really good point, and it's like so many factors involved, right? Of like how just the industry works, right? And that's what makes also the sport industry the way, or the football industry, itself, a piece of its own, right? You need to know how it works, the ins and outs, and yeah, it's like a difference, right? It's one thing, going to like a big club, right, in the main city, in the capital, like talking with them, and then maybe you go in the smaller club in a bit on the middle of nowhere, right? And it's different,
Exactly.
And you got to speak the same language at the end of the day, the way you express, the way you communicate, it's all part of the process. I wanted to, as we're about to kind of finalize this, I wanted to kind of touch upon some key trends that you foresee, especially when it comes to big data, utilization of it in the football industry. Working so closely also with a lot of different clubs, with FootballISM, like what are some key trends that you foresee in the space, and like how are people going to utilize this in the football industry moving forward?
Okay, so it's a question that can go for a talk.
like
just
short,
one podcast can go. No, you have different. You have. I think the idea of big data is generalized. Everyone thinks it's good. Everyone knows it's good. Then you have the second part, that is how to do it, and that's where I think lots of clubs are failing. Because lots of clubs, they really think, okay, I need the data systems, and so everyone wants the idea of big data. So this guy creates the lab, then the other guy creates the technical thing, then the other one uses but at the end, they are all still doing the same thing, is growing inside their own departments. Okay, it's nice, sure, but they really don't understand that your big data is where you can put all data. It's not only injuries, nutrition, and anthropometry related with the physical effort from the GPS in training. It's also the psychological context, the schools they have at the grades they have at school, and the legal and family environment. So What I think the problem is, it's not the problem. What I think lots of clubs are prioritizing and spending thousands and thousands and thousands of euros, hundreds of thousands of euros in, is the big data and the idea of high performance and creating robots.
Right.
They really want to create the next Erling Haaland. Easy. For me, I really like him, of course, but I'm giving the example of the guy from the football world, the modern football, and that's the key priority. In my point of view, personally, I believe football clubs have a different responsibility, because football clubs have the responsibility of 99% of the kids are not going to be professional football players,
right?
Of those clubs. And so what are you aiming for? Of course, you want to win money with great players. Yeah. No doubt. Of course, you want to be a reference club, you want to win titles, you want to everything. But I think, and at least for me, in my personal objective, when I will create my own club, is first, I want to make sure that those 99.9% are going into the adult life, knowing how to eat, with their psychological environment well managed, well going forward, with a healthy lifestyle, understanding the priorities in life, knowing how to do their taxes, knowing how to do some things that even you don't even learn at school. So, but my idea is basically, and I'm talking about here in Central Europe. We are not even talking about the influence that football can have in all over the world. Of course, unfortunately, if everyone saw the FIFA documentary in Netflix, you know that lots of the money that is going for these countries is not going exactly where it should go. But my vision of football for the future and this big data and everything is not only to create the perfect robot, and that's what I think the industry is heading for, and that's where I want to diverge as well. I really want to focus much more on the educational side, and guaranteeing that because these guys are going to be investors in the future. These guys are going to be great guys in the future. And if you learn and if you teach them how to be responsible and good adults in life, they are not only be good for them, they are going to be good for their families, for their kids, and straight on and going forward. So this is, I diverge a little bit from the question, but this is a little bit my view for the future.
Your vision and what you see as how it all impacts. So it makes sense. We're about to run out of time here, so I'm just you have to just go very fast here on the last question, was essentially, what tips do you have, for students, young professionals looking to get a career in sports, looking to get a career in football? What kind of advice would you give for them?
The first one is you need to understand who you are. So if you are a big sales guy, and I'm not a sales guy, even though I started as a sales manager. If you are a big guy that likes to talk and likes to manage and likes to negotiate and likes to things, maybe you need to understand who you are first to understand where you should go. So I quickly understood that I shouldn't go to an agency. I shouldn't be an agent. That's not my personal lifestyle and what I really want. And that's the first thing to understand, and to understand that if you work for a club, you're not going to win much money for a long time, probably, because football clubs, unfortunately, they don't pay much. And that's also another thing, understanding, okay, it's really nice to work for a club, but you're not going to win lots of money. At some point, do you want to make the opportunity cost of working for a club and for 1-2 years to gain the name and then maybe jump into another one? That's another thing. And the second advice, as I told previously in our conversation, study in terms of understand tactical concepts, technical concepts, even though you might want to get a job as a legal guy, because if you know how to talk with people from the football world, if you are flawless in the conversation, in arguments, the worst thing when you talk with a person in football is that they feel you are in Portugal we say treinador de bancada. Is the coach on the stand, the coach on the stadium, the typical supporter making and saying stuff. If you don't support that with clear and objective analysis, if you don't make the person in front of you understand that you actually really know what you're talking about, you're dead. because they will see you, okay, this is just another guy. Now you have lots of competition, much more competition. So make courses, study where you want more, but also general understanding of how a football structure works, and from that everything will go on.
Absolutely. Well, with that, Jose, I would like to thank you so much, for taking the time, for sharing your stories and your insights about your career, about the football industry, and a little bit what you learned along the way. So thank you so much for taking the time, and it was a pleasure having you part of the podcast.
It was my pleasure.
And for those of you that have been here all the way at the end, make sure to like the video, subscribe as well to get weekly tips from people like Jose every week. I mentioned that, that's a good way to learn. Another good way to learn is obviously, check out the Sporting Global Academy, where we have multiple different kind of mini courses, digital courses that you can take with different kind of sports organizations. Again, educating you, learning the tips and insights that you don't learn in school, making sure that you'll be aware of it, and stay tuned for new courses coming your way too. There might be something interesting along the way that we'll announce at some point. I can't share everything yet, but I think Jose knows what I'm talking about. Regardless of that, obviously, if you haven't already, subscribe and sign up for free at sportingglobal.com. Connect with the right kind of people, find relevant job opportunities, and of course, find great universities to boost your sports career today. And one final thing, Jose, before we wrap up, it's kind of like a tradition here at the Sporting Global podcast, and I have to teach you a little bit Norwegian before we end it all.
Sure.
Cool. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. Easy.
Vi snakkes.
Vi snakkes.
See you later.
All right. Thank
Obrigado.
you so much.
Até já em português.
Até já. All right.